Tennessee Congressman and House Homeland Security Chairman Mark Green joins us now. He made that hearing possible yesterday. Mr. Chairman, great to have you on the show, sir.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me on.
I watched every minute of the hearing that I could yesterday. It was really compelling. And we all know the crisis. We all know the visuals. But yesterday, being able to lay out how often Alejandro Mayorkas told Congress something that wasn't true, did something that was in violation of a court order or in violation of the laws that Congress passed. You laid it out so succinctly. I think Americans got a lesson that they probably have been denied by the news media before. A pretty important moment, I think, for the country yesterday.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. And the big debate is whether this is just an argument over the policy differences of one administration or the other, or this rises to high crimes and misdemeanors. And what I think is it rises to high crimes and misdemeanors because the founders were really clear about that. It's abuse of office, it's dereliction of duty that results in harm to the country. And this secretary has very clearly defied the laws passed by our Congress, particularly the Immigration and Nationality Act, which says you're to detain people when they come in. He hasn't done that. 85% being released now immediately after showing up at the border. It says that you are to basically put them into a judicial process. They're not doing that. If you come in with the CBP One app, you just get released. 95.8% of those get immediately released. All the policies that he's created have basically broken many aspects of that law, turned it into an open border. He's also defied 4 court rulings that have said, look, you have to cease and desist your activities because you're in defiance of laws passed by Congress. And as I recall from my education on the Constitution and my reading of the Constitution, it is the Congress that writes the law. The executive branch gets to execute those laws. They don't get to make them up. They don't get to pick and choose which ones they're going to follow. And oh, by the way, he did take an oath to defend that Constitution, so he's violated his oath too. Also lied to the United States Congress on multiple occasions and lied to the American people over 100 times. I mean, this guy, he has no respect for the founding document, the Constitution of the United States, or a co-equal branch or co-equal branches of government because he's defying judiciary too.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Mr. Chairman, was there any sense for you, because as I was watching, I kind of waffled back and forth, was there any sense for you that he wanted to be truthful? And I asked that with the premise that we had Brandon Judd on earlier in the week, and he talked about how when he had a one-on-one, a face-to-face with the secretary, that he was able to get him to admit that 85% of the illegals coming into our nation illegally are being released. And he talked about how there was kind of these two Alejandro Mayorkases, the one who seems to be capitulating to this administration and being a little funny with the numbers, and then the one who may actually want to tell the truth. Did you find that both of those men showed up tomorrow or one or the other, or Wednesday or one or the other?
Well, Mayorkas did not show up, Amanda, yesterday. We actually sent him a request in August, a request in September, and he refused to come then. We recently, just as 2 weeks ago, sent him another request to come as a part of the impeachment proceedings, and he basically said he couldn't make it that day because he was entertaining Mexican officials. So it's pretty clear to me that this secretary puts Mexico over America. We're a co-equal branch of government. We're doing his impeachment. We sent him with plenty of time to adjust his schedule. And he didn't even respond within the deadline. I mean, his passive-aggressive nature with us is just off the charts. So we're going to go ahead and move forward with the impeachment, I guess, without him coming.
Yeah. Important letters you've been sending him. He just is disregarding them. You often can judge a person's motive by the way they act. And last week, you and the speaker went down to the border. It was historic. One of the largest congressional delegations ever to go to the border at once. And just before you got there, according to a letter you sent last night, Alejandro Mayorkas and his team did something pretty jarring. Could you tell us what you revealed in your letter last night?
Well, it's basically the issue of flow, right? So they made it sanitary so that when we got there, everything looked just pristine. And I'm not sure the cartels didn't have their contribution to it too. You know, they are the ones that ultimately control flow from the southern part of the border. But yeah, we went from like 10 to 12,000 a day to almost just a few hundred. So it was very clear that things had been sanitized, and we didn't see what was happening just days before we got there.
Hijacking the crime scene. It's just remarkable. Unbelievable.
Unreal. And sir, you have a unique perspective, I think, on illegal immigration because you have served in our armed forces. I think you were in the Army as a combat veteran, and we are seeing these numbers of military-aged males coming across our border. And obviously, as Americans, we feel for the children, we feel for the elderly, and the people who really do need help. It's the military-aged males that we are concerned about. We're continuing to get these terror alerts. Is that something that is playing a big part of why you're investigating?
Absolutely. You know, when you think of the harm to the country, obviously the fentanyl, the human trafficking, the drug cartel stuff, all kind of sort of bubbles to the top. But people don't think about the fact that the highest year ever prior was 1,800 Chinese nationals coming into the United States. Last year in FY23, it was 28,000.
Wow.
Now, something's going on there, right? The Chinese government is the most surveilled state. You have to get permission, have a certain credit score before you can get on a plane and fly to Ecuador and walk into the United States. And we have many of them that are connected to former PLA. They've been in the People's Liberation Army. They're military age now. They're older women and children too. But just imagine it's sort of like you have to think about what Russia did in Ukraine, infiltrating years before, putting people in there. Those became the saboteurs. Now, I'm not suggesting that China's ever going to go to war with us, but if we were to defend Taiwan, who's in that group here in the United States? I mean, we've already caught fake tourists trying to videotape military installations in the United States. These are Chinese, right? So, and then on top of that, you got the China balloon. I mean, it is a huge threat to the country, and Mayorkas just doesn't seem to care.
Yeah. I want to stay on the theme of dereliction of duty because obviously that's a very important theme for what Mayorkas has done. But it goes one up, right? Because if you're going to open up the border, the last thing you want to do is make a terrorist state, perhaps the best known state sponsor of terrorism in the world, and give it a lot more money so it can start doing things. We had a big report yesterday, sir. It was an NCTC new advisory to all government officials saying Iran has tried to conduct 21 terror attacks against Jewish and Iranian dissident targets in the Western world since Joe Biden took over and started giving Iran more money. Most of those have been thwarted. Obviously, October 7th wasn't one of them. The idea that you would arm Iran with a lot of money while opening up the border, it seems like a dual attack on America by our own president.
Well, it's certainly stupid. And the problem here is these Democrat leaders don't understand a good guy from a bad guy. Right? They want to defund our police, but street violent criminals. They want to make a deal with Iran, but basically when Israel kills one of the Hamas leaders, I think it was Secretary Blinken who said, "Oh, this could metastasize." You know, he was basically frustrated about that. They don't know a good person from a bad person. So I guess it's consistent at least with how they've behaved. But they are dealing with Iran in these swats on the hand. I mean, they're bombing their militias, their terrorist groups in Iraq are bombing American soldiers and American contractors that are there in Syria, in Iraq. It's ridiculous what this administration is doing. The Houthis, look, they are a terrorist extension of the Iranian government, and we need to bomb those launch sites that are firing on shipping. I mean, this is a no-brainer.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, this class of Republicans, you guys have actually had a remarkable ability to work some bipartisan issues with Democrats, China being one of those, since you mentioned China. Illegal immigration, in years past, in elections past, it was kind of a situation where Democrats thought it wasn't really that big of a deal, or it was kids in cages, it's all Trump's fault. And then on the other side of the aisle, you had people who were truthfully sounding the alarm about what was happening in the crisis at our southern border. It seems to me that the folks who used to think it wasn't a crisis are moving over into the shoot, we need help sector. Have you been able to get Democrats to help you out with this issue at all?
Not in our committee. The Democrats in our committee, led by ranking member Benny Thompson, have done nothing but attack President Trump, attack me even in the committee. They've done everything they can to deflect away from the real record of a catastrophe at our southern border. But in quiet conversations, I've had several Democrats tell me that Joe Biden should fire Alejandro Mayorkas. They even said that somebody should have been fired on the Afghan withdrawal too. So it's very interesting. I don't think we'll get any vote support for impeaching him, but many are very frustrated. You look at Eric Adams in New York City. What he is saying, he is really putting the pressure on the federal government. Said it the other day. Now he wants resources, he wants money, which I think is just more of an incentive for people to come here. But they recognize that it's a failure of the administration that they're dealing with right now.
Yeah, that is. Sir, yesterday Jim Jordan came on, Barry Loudermilk came on. They both said, listen, I think we need to achieve in the budget deal a suspension of any funding for any illegal immigrants for the rest of the year. Basically, stop the flow now. You've been preaching that for a long time. Is that a place that all Republicans can get so that you can hold the line?
I certainly hope so. You know, there's that individual who is has a humanitarian need, needs to go, a little kid that's going to go to a hospital.
That's right.
And you parole the parent for just 24 days to come in or whatever that, I'm okay with those exceptions. But look, we need to shut the southern border. And that means no dollars for any additional immigrants that come across the southern border. 100%.
Yeah, that's an important one.
Sir, just quickly before we go, the phrase dereliction of duty, I think, unfortunately, a lot of people would argue that applies to 90% of the federal government. But allowing a poison to come across the southern border and kill Americans, that to me is very specifically impeachable. Is it to you?
Yeah, so his failure to protect the American people is an impeachable offense as far as I'm concerned. If you are doing your job in such a poor way, dereliction of duty, violation of the laws, all the things that I listed before, and it's causing a negative harm to this country, then you got to go. And that's why we're leading this fight. We did the 5-phased investigation of Secretary Mayorkas over the last 6 months, came up with the recommendations, which people can find on homeland.house.gov and read those reports. 300 pages of reports about his the ramifications of this open border. And now we're leading an impeachment fight. And we have a few more committee hearings, and then we'll vote on articles of impeachment.
Wow. Well, sir, you've done so much work in an area where the Biden administration has offered no help to the American people. We're really grateful for that. We're going to be watching the next few weeks. A lot of important history ahead of us, but great to have you on tonight.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, John. See you, Amanda.